brief overview of what the talk's going to have today. So we're just going to start off with some basic terms and definitions so that we can all get on the same page and understand all the same terms throughout the talk. And then we're going to primarily spend most of this time focusing on colleges and what colleges are looking for. It's going to be slightly different than what medical schools are looking for, which is the next step after college. But because college comes first, that's where we're going to be spending most of our time. We're going to sort of round off with discussion of different pre-medical programs and pre-medical universities that have really good programs in the US, and then just going over how you should think about applying to those colleges. So the first question is, what is pre-med? And saying that you are pre-med is not a major. And this is, you can't usually apply to the pre-med major. It's not really a thing at most schools. So what is a major is biology. Most people end up doing biology, they end up doing chemistry, or like me, some sort of neuroscience, psychology. In that section of study is usually where most people spend their time. On top of the requirements for the major, you also have to take classes that medical schools require. And so if you are a chemistry major, that means you have to take more biology and physics. And if you are a neuroscience major, then you often end up having to take more chemistry. So that's just kind of how it ends up falling out. Whichever major you officially major in, you have to take classes outside of that major to accommodate the requirements for getting into medical school. And you can see at the bottom of the slide, there's a list of different classes that a lot of medical schools require. This is not a comprehensive list. So as you look at different medical schools and as you're thinking about which medical school you might want to attend, keep in mind that they're not all going to look the same as this. And a big difference is that some schools will require things like a class in psychology or even communications classes before you can apply to medical school. Another term you're going to hear frequently when talking about applying to medical school, not applying to college, but applying to medical school, is the MCAT. And this is a standardized test, much like the ACT or the SAT, that has multiple choice questions, has multiple different sections, and you don't have to get a certain grade, but much like the SAT or the ACT, scoring well on this test is what is going to get you into medical school. And you should be aiming for above average on this test if you really want to get into medical school. A question I hear a lot is, when should you start studying? When should you take it? I recommend studying sort of at the end of your sophomore year and then taking it basically sometime in your junior year, but leave yourself enough time to take it twice. And I say that because the first time you take any test, it's a new experience. It doesn't really matter how many times you've done a standardized test before. Every standardized test is a little bit different. And so taking it again can sometimes just help with that familiarity and nerves that are always accompanying the first time. So when you're planning on taking the MCAT, definitely leave yourself plenty of time to take it twice in your junior year. Or alternatively, once in your sophomore year, which is your second year, and then once in your junior year. So again, thinking about medical schools, they generally require scientific research. They want you to be volunteering at a hospital, and they also want you to be shadowing physicians to prove that you know what you're getting into and know that this is really, really, really what you want. You're also going to need stellar letters of recommendation, and some of that obviously needs to come from science teachers, but at least one of them they're going to want to see from somebody outside the science field. Now, you may be asking yourself, why are we looking at what medical schools want? That's like maybe 8 years away for some of us. And you're absolutely correct. But the reason this matters is because looking at what medical schools want is going to help inform what you should be looking for in college. All right, so college. What do you need to do to get into a college that has a good pre-med program? So the first thing is you want to take science classes, whether you're thinking you're going to do neuroscience, biology, chemistry, some combination of those different majors, you're going to want to take rigorous science classes. The most important of those are going to be AP biology and AP chemistry. Physics is also a good thing to take because you will have to take at least one physics class in a physics lab usually in university, but you don't necessarily have to take AP physics. Would taking AP physics hurt? Absolutely not. If you're good at physics and can get a good grade in physics, it's totally can be to your advantage to take AP physics. Much like physics, taking advanced math classes is better. The more advanced the math class you can take, the better off you'll be. Aim ideally for a calculus level if possible. If you can't, you can't, but that's where I would aim for. The other thing you want to do is you want to have just good grades in general. Getting good grades will enable you to get into a good university, and that definitely helps with medical school and medical school applications. The other thing you want is you want to demonstrate your interest in medicine where you are right now. That can be as simple as shadowing, that can be as simple as volunteering, and it doesn't necessarily even have to be at a hospital. If there is a center nearby that helps children who are what I call neurodiverse children, so children with autism or Downs or any of those other neurological diseases, that's a great thing to be doing. If you have a center that deals with an elderly population, so again, you're thinking about places where you could encounter dementia, Parkinson's, some of these old age, quote unquote, diseases, then that is another extracurricular that could expose you to medicine and can expose you to what medicine is like. Getting involved with a medical research program, that is awesome if you can do it as a high school student. I realize that medical research is not something you can always engage in as a high school student, but keep that in mind again when you're looking at universities, because you're going to want to have access to research and research programs. So what else are colleges interested in when they're looking at students, especially pre-med students? So there's a lot of components to being a doctor besides just the science, and this is definitely something that medical schools screen for. So they want students who are mature and responsible because they want doctors who are mature and responsible. A lot of what a doctor does is based in communication, whether that's written communication with their peers, their fellow doctors, their colleagues, the nurses that work with them, or talking to the patient, explaining things to the patient. Whatever that looks like, doctors have to be good at communicating and communicating effectively. And so they're screening for students who can demonstrate that they are good communicators. In the same way, everybody wants a doctor who is ethical and professional. And so these are two other things that medical schools in general screen for and want you to demonstrate that you have. In terms of technical capacity and technical skills, you have to be observant. You have to be able to think through information that's not going to be presented in a coherent, logical fashion, and then sort it into a coherent, logical fashion when you're talking to other people. So it's not just one thing where you have to be good at science and have to have exposure to medicine. They're looking for other traits, and you can demonstrate those in other ways. So you'll see that there's definitely some repetition with these medical schools as well. So, for instance, Michigan says that they're looking for students who possess personal attributes and competencies that align with their commitment to train leaders. So, again, they're looking for qualities, they're looking for characteristics that show that you are more than just your academics. And this is going to be true as in college when you're looking to apply to medical school. And that's also true for colleges who are looking at incoming students who say that they're interested potentially in becoming doctors. So keep that in mind when you're applying to colleges, is that this is starting it in high school will enable you to get to a university that will have some of those same opportunities, which will then line you up well for medical school. Okay, so how do you know that you're getting into a college that is going to line you up well for medical school? There's a couple of things that you can look at. So you want to look at the history of the school and how many of their pre-med students actually end up successfully entering into a medical school. And you want to look at the opportunities that that university has in their pre-med program. You want to look at research opportunities and clinical experience opportunities. The research opportunities are usually part of the university itself, but the clinical experience opportunities are usually something that has to do with geographic location. So to give you an example, if you are in Boston or Cambridge, there's a lot of schools in Boston and Cambridge. There are a ton of really good hospitals in Boston and Cambridge too. And some of that has to do with the universities, but some of them are completely unaffiliated with the university. And just being aware of that geographically can be really helpful in determining whether you're interested in going to school in Boston or Cambridge, as an example. And the last one is obviously the rigor of the curriculum. So medical schools have rigorous curriculums. That's just the bottom line. And they want to accept students who can succeed given their rigorous curriculum. And this is something that matters, and that if they don't think you're going to succeed at their school, then they won't accept you. So these are some of the best schools for pre-med students. They're lightly arranged in order of best at the top, and I'm not going to say that Case Western is the worst. It's just the worst potentially on this list. This list is very fluid, so keep that in mind, especially if you're still in 9th or 10th grade, that this ordering and this ranking may not still be exactly the same when you're getting ready to apply for university, because these do change with time. So we're going to go over all of these different ones, starting with Harvard. But I do want to draw your attention to sort of the information that's located on the right-hand side of the screen. It gives you just a little bit of data about the school itself. So the acceptance rate, what sort of SAT or ACT scores you'll be looking at if you want to apply, the size of the school, that sort of stuff. So it's useful information to have when you're thinking about applying to a university or any university in particular, because it tells you sort of what you're aiming for and what you're looking at. So Harvard University has the top medical school in the US. Going to Harvard University does not guarantee that you will get into that medical school, however. That medical school accepts graduates from multiple different universities across the US. So you shouldn't feel that you have to go to Harvard University to attend Harvard Medical School. Harvard University, however, does have an extremely high medical school acceptance rate at 95%. So if you're interested in going to medical school, then Harvard is a great school for that. I will say that Harvard does not tell you how it calculates that number. And this is important because, as you'll see on some of the later slides, there are other schools that also have over 90% acceptance rates, but they include reapplicants. So these include students who end up taking a gap year and then reapplying to medical school after that or during that gap year. So keep that in mind that Harvard doesn't publicize where that number comes from. And so it's not necessarily something that you can just directly compare across schools until you know how each school is calculating it. Like I said, Cambridge and Boston both have great medical facilities across the board. They have a variety of different hospitals, from pediatrics to surgery to research projects at those different medical institutions. They're just a great place to explore medicine because you can shadow tons of different people. It's just they're used to it in Boston. The other nice thing about Harvard is that students are assigned a sophomore. Students students are assigned a tutor in their sophomore year, and this is something that enables you to have that one-on-one mentoring, which I think is a great thing to have whenever you can have it. So the next one on the list is Duke. It has at least an 85% acceptance rate from its pre-med students into medical schools. They actually get pre-medical advising from the beginning, from their freshman year. And again, Duke has a top 10 medical school on campus along with the university. It's also just a great research institution. It has a lot of undergraduate options for research, along with health-related internships and even study abroad programs that are related to medicine. Next one on this list is the University of Pennsylvania. It has a more structured pre-med program. It helps pre-med students pick out classes and prepare them for the MCAT, which is not something that all universities do. Philadelphia is also a major city in the US, which is great because it means, again, there's a lot of different hospitals in the area and a lot of different hospitals you can look at when you're trying to find shadowing or volunteering experiences. The other fun thing about the University of Pennsylvania is they have programs that are designed to help students from non-traditional majors go pre-med. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, the example is that they give is engineering. So that's not one of the standard majors for people who are deciding to be pre-med, but they actually have a program that's designed to enable students to examine those diverse interests if that's what they want. So the Washington University in St. Louis, again, has a great pre-med program that has some MCAT prep involved with it. There are 2 local hospitals in the area that are really good. It's not as densely populated as the East Coast. There's not quite as many facilities, but it still has 2 great hospitals in the area and has a lot of research and internship opportunities that are available to its students. Rice is a university that's in Texas. It has a lot of programs that are designed to help students from low income backgrounds afford not only Rice, but then also medical school. So one of the things that's really nice about Rice is that it has a lot of scholarships that it offers its students. Again, it's a top tier university, and that means research programs, that means internships. It's just really great for that as well. Houston, again, it's another big city, this time in the southern United States. And along with that, there's just a variety of medical opportunities that just come with that geographic location. I'm sure that a number of you on this call have heard of Stanford University. It also houses a top-ranked medical school and has pre-med advisors for students who are interested in becoming doctors and going to medical school. The main thing that's different about the Stanford program is the Stanford Immersion in Medicine series. So this is a program that's specifically designed to give sophomores, juniors, and seniors the opportunity to shadow doctors. So it does a lot of the legwork for you in pairing you as an undergraduate student with doctors that are in the vicinity and hopefully in the specialty that you might be interested in experiencing. Northwestern University is located, it's not technically located in Chicago, it's located near Chicago. It's a beautiful campus. It has a lot of different programs that are available, but one of the biggest opportunities, I think, from Northwestern is that just its proximity to Chicago. If you have any interest in trauma, Chicago is actually one of the biggest trauma areas in the United States. And so there's a lot of opportunities for people who are interested in trauma if you can get into or around Chicago. Brown University, this one is another East Coast institution. It also has a really high medical school acceptance rate among its pre-med students at 85%. One of the other fun things is that Brown has a emergency medical team. So they basically have ambulances that instead of being staffed by the city of Providence, they're actually staffed by students at Brown. And students at Brown can get training as a paramedic and can get licensed as a paramedic and then work on the ambulance. That has, of course, two benefits. One is the medical experience of working on the ambulance, but the other one is that you actually can have a job and get paid for taking shifts at the ambulance. It's a great way to get letters of recommendation. It's a great way to have things to write about on your medical school application if you can find an opportunity like that. It also has, much like the University of Pennsylvania, because of how its curriculum is structured, if you're interested in potentially applying to medical school, but don't want to do one of these standard majors for pre-meds, then Brown's curriculum is really conducive to that and really conducive to choosing your own pathway and choosing what you want to study while still doing pre-med. So Amherst College, one of the things I wanted to start pointing out is that if you look at the SAT and ACT scores, it actually has slightly lower average SAT and ACT scores. So if you're really interested in being a pre-med student, but for whatever reason your standardized testing doesn't quite make it to where you want it to go, this is a really good option. If you look at that first bullet point, it also has a over 90% acceptance rate if you include people who apply to medical school the second time around. So just keep that in mind for sort of in your back pocket. It might be a really good thing to include on your college list if you're interested in becoming pre-med, just because it's a little bit easier, but has a really, really good acceptance rate at the end. The other thing that's really, really nice about Amherst is that it has a smaller class size, which again, we talked about one of the things that you have to be cognizant of as a pre-med student is that you're going to need letters of recommendation for applying to medical school. And smaller class sizes mean you get to know your teachers better, which means you get better letters of recommendation. It's a little bit cold and cynical to say it that way, but that's usually how it works. The other thing that's really nice about Amherst is that they actually collect data on how their students do. And again, they provide that mentoring that really helps you craft your application to medical school. Case Western is got a really awesome location. I'm sure most of you have heard of the Cleveland Clinic if you're interested in medicine, and this university is located nearby. As you can imagine, there's a lot of volunteering and research opportunities that come along with that, and along with the other hospitals that are in the area. And much like Brown, it has a EMS team that you can get training to be a paramedic, and then you can work with their team on campus. So this is sort of the summary slide. After hearing all of that, how do you actually apply? So the first thing is to start early. If you're interested in doing pre-med, it's a tough competition to get there. So the earlier you can start getting good grades, the earlier you can start doing the extracurricular activities that demonstrate your interest in medicine, the better off you're going to be. Do your research. Figure out what schools you want to go to, and don't pick schools just because they're at the top of a list somewhere. Pick them because you like them, because you think they have opportunities that you will enjoy doing, and that they have opportunities that will aid you in your career. So the third piece is just to work hard. You can't get into medical school without good grades. You can't get into top universities without good grades. And whether you're in 9th grade or whether you're in 12th grade, that is still going to apply. The last one is about crafting your application. So a lot of times I will ask students, why do you want to be a doctor? And they will say, being a doctor is a good profession, right? And I'm like, yes, but that's not going to get you into university, and that's not going to get you into medical school. So know your narrative. Know why you're motivated to do it. Have compelling reasons for why you want to do it. And just to add a caveat to that, the first thing that tends to come to people's minds is a death in the family, an illness in the family, or now more recently, this worldwide pandemic. Those are not unique things for people to write about. So come up with something specific, come up with a story, come up with a reason that sounds like you. And this is something that can take a while to find, and that's okay. It comes back to that first point. Start finding that now. Start trying to figure out what reasons you can give people now, and then craft your application around that.